Hello and welcome back. This again is the final three. Today looking at the final three questions of the GCSE Maths exam from June 2018 and this particular paper, paper 3. If you're tuning in for the first time, I really would appreciate you leaving a like and subscribing. If you want to check out my channel, you'll see other things on the channel, other revision videos that last about sort of half an hour or so. But the final three are the quickest ones of all, going through the last three questions of all the exams from June 2017. Right, so this particular question, 19, we're in calculator territory here, but this one doesn't really require a calculator really. You can do all of this without a calculator. It's talking about two right-angled triangles, so these two here, and it's saying that tan E is tan F, and it's asking you to find the value of x. So we have to write expressions for tan E and tan F. Now we know that the tangent of E is the opposite divided by the adjacent. So the opposite divided by the adjacent, x divided by 4x minus 1. And for F, it's the 6x plus 5 divided by 12x plus 31. And they're saying these two things are the same. So let's write down our expressions. So get a few marks banked away. Opposite over adjacent here. And again, opposite over adjacent here. These two things. They're saying these two things are equal. So then it becomes a bit of an algebra question. Okay, and at this point we just need to simplify this. So we're going to multiply, cross multiply really, x times all of this and all of this times that. So we're going to do that real quick. So we're going to get 12x squared plus 31x. So I'm multiplying all of this by that. And then I'm going to multiply 6x plus 5 times by 4x minus 1. So this times that. So I'm just working out here what that is going to be. So I'm going to have 24x squared plus 20x minus 6x minus 5. So that's 24x squared plus 14x minus 5. So that's what this is going to be. So I'm going to write that now over here. So 24x squared plus 14x minus 5. And again, I'm going to collate all these things into one simple quadratic. So I'm going to take 12x squared from both sides. So I'm going to have 12x squared. I'm going to take this 31x from 14. So that gives me minus 17. And then I'm going to have the minus 5 here from earlier and then equal to 0. So I have to squeeze that in. Now, this is a quadratic which has got a coefficient of x squared. So this might be one that we can't factorise, but actually it is. We can factorise this. But if you didn't wanted to factorise it, you can use the formula or other methods and you can solve it. Given it's the calculator paper, you can go ahead and do that, but you can actually factorise this. I've shown this on previous videos, but if you multiply the first term, the 12, by the minus 5, you get minus 60, and then look for factors of minus 60 that then make minus 17. So minus 20 plus 3 will work because these two multiply to give you minus 60, but also minus 20 plus 3 makes minus 17. You're then going to pair off values. So 20 and 3, you have to pair those values off. So 3 definitely goes with 12 because 3 doesn't go with 5. There's nothing that 3 has in common with 5, but 20 does. So you're going to write 12x squared plus 3x. So the beginning is the same. Then you're writing plus 3x minus 20x and then the minus 5 there at the end. So this bit and this bit stay the same, but the minus 17 is split off, okay, into this. So the 3 and the 20. Then you're going to factorise these first two terms to take out what's common. So you'll see really quickly you can take out 3 as common, and then you're going to take out 5 as common from the second pair, and you get this, which means that this factorises to 3x, that should have been 3x minus 5, and then 4x plus 1 equals to 0. So these two things, which means that x is 5/3, so 5/3, or minus a quarter. But in this case, because we know that x is a side length, so up here is a side length, it can't be negative. So we disregard this value and we know it must be this one. So x is 5/3, and that hopefully gets you your 5 marks. Moving on to question 20, needs a bit more thought. This particular question is a Venn diagram question. So it's talking about students selecting French, German or Spanish. So 3-way split. So you're thinking about a 3-way Venn diagram, and it's talking about all these different values. So all we have to do is just fill out the values as we go. So this is French, this be German, for example, and this one be Spanish. So French, German, Spanish. We are going to try and fill out all the information as we go along. So 31 speak French. We can't do anything with that right now. Doesn't really tell us much. This one here, 2 speaking French, German and Spanish. So 2 speaking French, German and Spanish. That goes in there because that's the people that speak all 3. The 4 speak French and Spanish but not German. So that's going to have to be in there. So the 4 that speak French and Spanish but not German, that has to be in there. The 7 that speak German and Spanish, that's going to be in here. And then 8 do not speak any of the languages, so that's outside of the box. So here's the 8 that are outside the box. And then all 10 people who speak German speak at least one other language. So that means that all these boxes are the only boxes that are occupied. So we've got 7, 8, 9, and then, sorry, apologies. This must be 5 because German and Spanish must include those. So we have to include those in there. So that must be 5. So 5 and 2 make 7, and then we need another 3 here. So that's going to be 3 there. So 5 and 2 and 3. And then finally, 2 of the 50 people chosen at random. We have to understand what this box is first and what this box is first. So we're going to go back to the first line. It says 31 spoke French, and we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 here. So I know this must be 22 because it has to add to 31. And then finally I've got 4, 5, 6, and then this 5, that makes 11. And then you've got another 3 here, that's 14, and then another 22 there. That's going to make 36. And so we've got the 8 there, so 36 and 8, that's going to be 44. And I know I had 50 people, so this must be 6, finally, the ones that speak Spanish. Now, it's saying 2 of the 50 people are chosen at random. Work out the probability that they only speak Spanish. So 6 out of 50 is the probability of picking one that does Spanish. And then you're going to have another one that does Spanish. So that would be 5. And then because we've got one less in the mix, that's 5 out of 49. So those 2 possibilities added up would get you the probability in the total. So 3 out of 245. So those 2 things multiplied give you 3 out of 245. It's quite an interesting problem from a variety of reasons. Some people do try and do this with tree diagrams. It really is not suited for tree diagrams. It really does have to be a Venn diagram. It's the best way of doing it. So do revise that away and make sure you've got all those values taken into account. Make sure that you cover off all the possibilities. But if you decipher this carefully and work your way through it, you should have your answer quite quickly. The last question is a bit of a fiddle. It's this one here. So it's worth 5 marks. So it's not one that's trivial. It definitely does need some thinking. But you need to know a lot about congruent triangles because this is all about congruent triangles. Now the first part says prove that triangle ADP, so that's this one, ADP, is congruent to triangle CBQ, so that's this one. Okay, so we've got to prove they're 2 congruent triangles. There are some things that you know. For example, I know that AD, because this is a parallelogram, it tells you this in the question. Okay, it says it here. I know that AD equals BC. They must be the same length. I know that these 2 angles are the same. So I know that ADP is the same as the angle QBC. The other thing I know is because this is a parallelogram, this angle here and that angle there must be identical. These have to be identical because they're inside of a parallelogram, and opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal. So the angle DAB is equal to the angle BDC. They have to be identical. So I've got a side length being the same and two angles being the same. So I have angle, side, angle. That must mean that the triangles are congruent. Down here it's asking about AQ and PC. So AQ and PC. So again, this just requires a little bit of thinking. We already know that these two triangles are congruent. So we know that AP is the same as QC because we just showed that. So they're congruent triangles, so that has to be the same. We also know that AP and QC are parallel because they have to be. Okay, and then that must mean then that if these two are the same length and these two are parallel, this shape here, the APQC, that has to be a parallelogram. So APQC is a parallelogram, and if it's a parallelogram, that means that the opposite angles are equal and the opposite sides are equal and the opposite sides are parallel. So it must mean that AQ is the same as PC. They're both the same length and they have to be parallel because it's a parallelogram, so it has to be. So for the reasons we've just stated, this is all very straightforward if you understand it, but it has to be that these two are parallel in the diagram as well, and that will get you the 2 marks. Okay, that concludes this particular video. This one was June 2018, paper 3. All of these questions were done pretty much without a calculator, but it is the calculator paper. If you're revising for your exams for the summer, I do wish you all your best, and hopefully I will see you soon. Goodbye for now.